Hello everyone and welcome to our second Blast from the Past, and we're going back to the 2008-2009 EHF Champions League Final, the very first final that Tom O'Branigan commentated on, and he's our special guest for today alongside Brian Campion. How's it going, lads?
Not too bad. All good, Chris. Good to see you both during these trying times. And I just see the way those. I've got a little story for you about that game. I'm just looking at the cheerleaders there clapping everyone. It's just what a great shot. But I remember taking the train down from Madrid airport, because you kind of had to go on this 1 hour train journey down, and I was sitting in the train station, and there were all these beautiful looking women with these kind of like pull along cases, which I'd never seen before. I'd never seen them before, and I ended up sharing a carriage with them. And the eyes were hanging out of my head, And when I arrived, I realised that these girls were, these young ladies, I should say, were the halftime entertainment, the dancing girls for them. And I thought, oh man, handball is great. I remember thinking, geez, handball's fantastic. There you go, little story.
Yeah, I thought I have a good job. I'm going to stick to this, I think, for next while.
Little did I know, eh?
And when you're heading down the train that day, that must have been... Was that more nerve-wracking, or you didn't know what you were heading into?
Well, thankfully, I had done the game the week before in Kiel, and that was nerve-wracking because back in those days, so I kind of appeared in Kiel and no one knew who the hell I was, and I was sort of saying, "Oh, I'm here for the EHF," which kind of opened a few doors, but it wasn't EHF TV. It was just sort of like, I'm here for the EHF commentating, and. I had to drive myself down from a tiny little airport that Ryanair used to land in, and I drove down, and the whole way down. So basically, I didn't know who anybody was. Let's put that out there straight away. And you kind of laugh about it now because so many of these guys were still playing even up to a couple of years ago. There's Dominic Klein. Look at him, baby face on him. But and there's Nikola Karabatic. Now, I remember thinking to myself, okay, I know I've heard the name Nikola Karabatic, but please, 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 let the number that I have on this sheet be the actual number that Nikola Karabatic wears, because I just had visions of like calling it the wrong name to the wrong number. And so I had learned that there's Stefan Lofgren. I ended up doing a great piece with him, and I got on really well with him, a really nice guy. And I remember trying to remember all the names of the players to go with their numbers, because that, I didn't know who they were. There was no EHF TV back then. There's Vid Kapticnik with hair. Look at him. And Bruno Martini. That was another thing I was going to say. I remember that. But I didn't know who Bruno Martini was, but I remember meeting Bruno later and thinking to myself, okay, I knew, looking back over the history books, that he'd won with Montpellier, but he played with Kiel as the second goalkeeper that season. But I don't know, does he get on it? Because Omayer would never leave the court. But anyway, I remember, so I'm going to give you one name that I had to remember. Metlicic, right? And he wore number 19. Did he wear number 19? Yes, he did. There it is there. And I remember because I thought to myself, how the hell am I going to remember Metlicic? And then I said to myself, 1-9 sounds like one iron, like a golf club. And I thought, metal, 1 iron, Metlicic. That was the only way I could remember his name. Never heard of the guy before. Brilliant. I follow him on Twitter, and there's talent. Oh my God, look how young he looks there. By the way, do you know that I've never seen this game since? I've never watched it since, and that's Didier Dinard there, isn't it? He was some defender, I'll tell you.
Now we'll give a bit of context to all of this. It's the second leg of the final. As Tom mentioned, he had done the first leg in Kiel, which was a very high-scoring affair as well. It was a 5-goal victory for Kiel.
Don't tell me. Kiel won. No, I'm just trying to remember now. I would say that Kiel won. I think Kiel won by 5, right? Did I just hear you say that anyway? Kiel won by 5. And I'm going to say they scored 35 to 38 goals. I don't remember. 35 to 38 goals.
The score was 39-34.
39-34, yeah. I remember it was being... And do you know what? And there's Alfred. Oh, my God, little baby face on him. Look. That was his first season, right?
It was his first season.
In charge of Kiel. And the only thing I remember in the first leg was, if I remember correctly, I think Vid Kavtichnik had 2 great games. I think Karabatic had 2 great games in terms of goals scored. Yika had an amazing first game and a pretty poor second game, if I remember correctly. And Stefan Löfgren scored one of the best goals I ever saw from a centre player, where he had to jump off his wrong leg from about 11 or 12 metres in the first game. And he scored a goal. I don't think it was in the second game. But can I tell you what I do remember about this game, though?
As we just get started, for those of you who are only listening, the game has just started, so here we are. Go for it.
So I remember that Kiel went up by about 4 goals. I think they might have been 9 up overall on the whole thing, right? And then there was some decision that the referees gave, and the crowd's reaction just turned. It like, I remember thinking at the time, oh my God, that's really nasty. Because I always thought, like handball, you know, everyone's great pals, and the atmosphere just changed in the whole stadium. And Rutenka went in on the line, and I don't think Kiel got a decision for the last 20 minutes in the game. And well, we all know the result. I think Ciudad Real went on to win by 1 overall. So there was a 10-goal turnaround at some stage in the game. But that's what I remember. I remember the atmosphere just becoming really kind of, I don't know what the word is, kind of just antagonistic. And I think it really played on the referees. Now, I don't know. I can't remember. But that's just my memory as I was trying to think back on it, you know.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how it compares, your memories of it and the actual game itself. And as you mentioned before, there's so many names, and the same happened with myself and Alex when we went over the 2007 World Championship semi-final. So many names that even fans of the sport in recent years would really recognize. I mean, looking at both teams, it was an incredible array of players.
There's Abelo on the right wing. Do you know what? I just watched that goal from Marcus Alm. What an amazing player, front and back. And when you think of the way he's built, just watch him. He's real. I always remember his style was real languid. Looked like he wasn't doing an awful lot. And you look at the kind of, when Aginagalde came along, the line players became these boxes nearly, didn't they? You know what I mean? Like they were kind of the same height as they were wide. And then you look at, is that Uro Zorman on the ground? Always on the ground. Look at him. Oh, I got hit. Back then you could hit someone in the face and you didn't get 2 minutes. The good old days, eh? Is that Uro Zorman? It is it?
Yeah.
Hang on a minute.
It is, yeah.
Interesting story.
No. It is Uro Zorman. Look at him. Oh my God. Funny. Nothing changes.
These two teams played each other the season before in the final. And Kiel had won the first leg at home, and then Ciudad Real won by 6 in the second leg in Kiel to win the whole title. And Zorman and Christian Seitz, surprise, surprise, were involved in a little tussle at the end of the game, which ended up getting them both banned, and Seitz getting a big tear across his shirt. So there was a lot of, for two teams full of players who are, I think overall got on very well with each other. There was a bit of history between the two of them. And Kiel had won the championship 2 years before, Ciudad Real the year before that, and last year. So these two teams really were the standout teams of the late 2000s.
And they ended up playing the semi-final the following year in the Final Four. There's Sergei Rudenka. And it's interesting. We all think about him as being a halfback. Oh, look at Stephenson. Oh, look at that sidestep. So simple. He almost looks like oh my God, cherry dark hair. I met his twin brother once in Kiel. I didn't know he had a twin brother.
That's
and it was
right.
about 5 minutes before the game, and I'm up in the VIP room having a coffee. I don't know what I was doing there. Maybe it was 20 minutes before the game. I said, "Geez, that guy better get a move on." Standing there in his suit. Anyway, and was that Henrik Lundström on the left wing? Was it? He was. Am I right?
Yeah.
No, Fernandez. He was a great player. Jesus, he was. Do you know what? Do you know what it was? Jerome Fernandez. Am I right? Is that his name? Jerome.
Yep.
he had panache. There's a few players have panache, you know. There's a couple of guys are just like, you know what I mean. They're players. Some guys have. He had everything. I mean, he could have been a male model, Jerome Fernandez. He just even the way he talked to you. I mean, I know this isn't being videotaped, but he was just. Is that Kim Anderson? Is that Kim Anderson there?
It is, yeah.
Look at that. But sorry, this is. I don't know whether I've just got the worst Wi-Fi in the world, but it's kind of hazy.
It's a little bit hazy.
There's Vid, thinks he's a 9-meter shooter, going up for the 9-meter shoot. Is the force with him? No. Now I'm trying to figure out who's the left back here playing for. I can't see. Is that Raul Entrerios? No. There was Viran Morris. I was going to say that. And I said, what's he doing up in the left back? Viran Morris. What?
But do you remember having any interaction with these players at these games back then?
No. I'll tell you the only person who spoke to me after the game. I'll let you guys guess. Who's the only person that said something to me after the game?
I'll say Zorman.
I'm going to say Giseson.
Both wrong.
Okay.
And no one would believe this, but the only person who came up to me and asked me anything and asked me how I was sitting on my own in a kind of a corner. I was afraid to ask for a beer in the VIP, but I got one and a little bit of food, and I was absolutely starving. Was Sergei Rutenka came over to me,
really?
and from that day forward, I always had a lot of time for him, even though he was like everyone's favorite villain, you know. I remember thinking, you know, he had that little touch of humanity about him. He saw this, you know, this lost soul sitting in a corner, and he came over and talked to me, and he didn't need to, you know. But sad news about Sterbik now, isn't it? I heard that today.
Yeah, retiring, bringing. Well, I think it was going to happen anyway, but I think he decided that he wasn't going to wait to see how this coronavirus pandemic plays out, so just calling an end to it now.
I read in the interview with him, he's saying that he's a bit like a diesel engine. It takes a while to get going again. So he was imagining after that break that it would just be too hard to get going once again. But he's a man now who hasn't really changed too much. I mean, looking at the shots we have of him here, he hasn't changed a wild amount over the years.
No, he's put on a bit of weight. Look at Karabatic. I tell you, I think that he was always going to be a great player, you can tell, but over the two legs and this, you could just see his absolute will to win. And I know Stefan Löfgren was kind of coming to the end of his career, but he was still, I think he might have retired after that season, actually.
His last international game. This was his last international match, Löfgren. Yeah.
He still was kind of like the guy who kept everything going, you know, he kept the whole team ticking over. He knew the Kiel way, you know, like I know Marcus Alm became that and obviously was still at this stage. But like if you look, there's quite a lot of young players in that team. When you think about, you know, you think Yika there, I think he'd only just come to Kiel. Now he's the coach. It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that Karabatic was starting this, and that he was keeping Löfgren out of the team, even though Löfgren wasn't obviously the player he had been. You know, he was still a great player, but he wasn't the guy he had been. Do you know what I remember as well now that I'm looking at this? Those numbers, I was so worried because in the lights with the white, you couldn't make out the numbers. Can you imagine? I mean, no one would believe it now, but there was no EHF TV, so you couldn't kind of... Like even the websites weren't what they were now. So you're learning, you're hoping that the numbers are the same numbers of the guy, and you're looking at the numbers and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, is that 11 or is that 20? You know what I mean? Look at them. They're not so clear, you know, like the Kiel ones are clear as a bell.
But the original commentary of this now seems to have, I don't know if it's gone missing or if it's...
Oh, look at that. Get up, Bernard. Oh my God, what a save. I'll tell you, Shellman still can't score from the left wing. I mean, he's a great defender, but you got to give him 8 meters. Sorry, Jonas, I love you, you know I do, but... Did they allow that goal?
That was
I can't believe they allowed that goal. They'd never allowed that today. Oh, lovely ball. Does he get it? He does.
Great
Look at that. What a player. See what I mean? he doesn't look like he's doing an awful lot, He doesn't look, but he's just like, look at how did he get away with that? How did he get away with that goal? I mean, that's just shocking. That's brilliant.
But I was thinking the same thing when I was watching Christian Schwarzer playing as well. When you're saying about the mobile lines, how now it has changed a certain amount, that they are like these blocks, and where players like Christian Schwarzer and Marcus Alm were a little bit more agile on the line there.
What is the German word Kreisläufer?
Yeah. So the line runner.
Yeah. As opposed to a Kreisspieler.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, that's interesting, lads, because
they were more of it. He was. Sorry.
It's interesting because Alex was saying, and Alex as a line player aficionado was saying that was probably the one position. When we were watching in the 2007 game a few weeks ago, that he felt that was the one position that has evolved the most since 2007. So he felt it was quite rudimentary back then.
Well, it depended. Like, I think, you're listening to Campo there, and he's saying, he mentions two names, Marcus Alm and Blackie Schwarzer, who were just pioneers. Yeah, they were pretty much a you stand there, you block there type of guy, but you did have this kind of metamorphosis, let's say, of how a line player could play. And I think Marcus Alm was I just used, he was silky smooth. That's what I remember thinking when I watched him. Look at the 5-1 defense. I'll tell you, look at the speed, but in the end, Kiel they had an answer. That was the one thing I would say about Alfred Gislason. He had his set plays that worked, that, he said, okay, if they play this is what you do. And, over that, okay, they didn't win this Champions League, but you saw that over the next 3 years, they were clinical, they were surgical when they got going. That wasn't the best switch we ever saw, was it?
No.
I do remember, without taking too much away from the game, is that Jonas Schellman playing in 5-1? I'll tell you, he learned at the foot of a master, didn't he, with Talon Dutrabayev? Because you still see him when he's playing over there in Szeged, when he comes out in that 5-1, he's look at that, the double line wide open. They've got it wide. Did you see that movement? Pity we can't rewind and see it again. Seriously, but look at the movement, the little step out, the little CK as we used to call it, and the second line moves in, Yika goes in, and then Karabatic. Who would you want breaking through at 9 meters? Sorry, what were we saying there about? I can't remember what my point was. Doesn't matter now anyway. There's a long time to go. Oh yeah, sorry. No, I do remember at that time when I was at that game, the Irish national team. I think we'd been coaching it for about 3 years, and there was a big party in my house, and I wasn't even there, with all the Irish national team and a few others besides. And they were playing this. They must have played this live on some website. Maybe the start of EHF TV. They put this game out live. And so all the lads were watching it. And Carsten Clovin, who was our coach at the time, who's now in charge of the German national kind of youth setup, or one of the big nebbies anyway in that, he said he walked in to the room and said, "What's wrong with Tom? Apparently I started like an Ewok on helium." I was so excited. And he said, "I never came down. It just got worse." So maybe because you said the commentary can't be found, and maybe that's a good thing. Do you know what? I do have to say, that's a clever movement there from Lundstrom, but he just doesn't get the ball in. I will say that I remember at the time they'd asked me what I would do differently if I was commentating handball, And I said, look, I'd probably be a little bit more excited. And nothing is... Oh, look at that. Karabatic. He still does that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing changed. You think about it, they obviously he knows more about the game now than he did then, but some of the moves are still his little signature moves. Here's another one. No, he doesn't get it. Oh, what a ball. No, the fucking Egypts. Sorry. How can you call that? How many times do you want to say, for F's sake, referee, when you're commentating and you've just had to switch off your brain? Where were we? What were we talking about there?
We're talking about Karabatic, no?
No, before that.
for that.
Your commentary.
Oh, yeah. So they said to me, how would I change it? And one of the things I thought was, I really wanted to show how quickly the ball moves in... he won't be making that pass again. Oh, come on. Is that Philip Yeka missed that?
Yeah.
That was Yeka, yeah.
That was pretty poor. That was pretty poor all the way through. Big Sterbick makes the save, the wall. Have they given a penalty? No, they're wiping the floor, are they?
Yeah, just wiping it.
No, that's Ombrados who saved that.
It's Ombrados,
Sterbick
yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
Do you know, he was a great goalkeeper. Anyway, so I was saying to myself, how do you make it sound like the ball is moving faster? Because I never thought TV showed it. And I said, you mentioned the names, because if you say the names quickly enough, it gives the speed of the ball. Plus, it covered the fact that I didn't know what I was talking about. But I'm watching it now, and it just looks so slow. I mean, you know.
You think this looks slower than what people are... Yeah?
No, but I remember I don't know if Chris remembers the first time, or you remember the first time you ever saw like a high professional game, not commentary or anything else, and you remember thinking, Jesus Christ, the ball just seems to zip around, you know, it doesn't seem to slow. And I remember thinking, God, I remember the first game, I remember thinking, oh my God, the ball moves so fast, I can't even see what they're doing. But I'm looking at it now, and it just looks... I'm not saying it's Matrix style, but, you know, it doesn't look as quick as I remember it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, nice play. Oh, great save on my ear. Is it on my ear? It is,
That's
yeah.
on my
Can't
ear,
tell
yeah.
anymore. Can't tell anymore with that hairdo. God. I'll tell you one thing, though. Kim Anderson was a great player. And he may not show it, I think, in these games. And then I think he might have been injured in 2010 for the Final Four. But in 2012, he was the reason they won it, or one of the big reasons they won the Final Four in 2012.
I think he had one of the best arms, I think, in handball.
Yeah.
From a standing
when it was
shot
working.
position,
Look at that!
Oh, my God.
You know. What a ball, though. Oh, he was always there. Did Umbrada save that? Can't tell.
I think that was over the top.
Was it over the top? Bit like my commentary, Chris. Come here, 8-6. They're up by 7 now.
Yeah, and you could see already after 9 or 10 minutes, after a couple of the goals, Abelo was rushing the ball out. So they were feeling a bit of pressure and a bit of urgency to get things going here, Ciudad Real. Because at this stage, 2 goals down at home and 7 goals down, even though there's 46 minutes left, it's not looking too good for them.
No, and they've just brought Chema Rodriguez on there, I see. And I remember now, Jesus, I'm watching it now, and I remember in the second half, that's right, they attacked the goal to the right, and the crowd behind that goal were just absolutely unbelievable. So they're attacking the goal to our right. Sorry, Kiel were attacking. Yeah. Anyway, Chema Rodriguez, I remember then thinking to myself, that guy travels every time he gets the ball. Be interested to watch out for that, right?
Yep.
Because he always did this thing where he held the ball up in his arm and ran. Just he kind of basketball styles, and then kind of runs like the Statue of Liberty holding a torch, right? But I think he might have been a bit of a game changer. Geez, you know what, lads? This is like, we're talking the mists of time here. We really are.
He was one of those players, and I think you've often said it before in your commentary, that he was one of those players that if you were a coach and he was 12 years old, you'd be saying, don't be doing that and don't be doing this. But he was just one of those players who kind of went against everything you shouldn't be doing, like bouncing the ball at every chance he got. Like,
yeah, and it just shows you that obviously, we all try to be as non-biased as we can be commentating a game, but there are certain players you just love to watch. It doesn't matter what team they play for, and you just love to watch them and the way they approach the game and the way they play. And Chema really used to do my head in, right? He really.
There he is now. There he is scoring now. There he's scoring now.
Did he do the arm in the air thing?
Yeah.
And the fucking speed of him, he looks like he's been on the chocolate for about 6 months. Looks like he's carrying about 30 kilos, and look at him. Here he goes. No, that's not one of his specialities. The arm in the air. He reminds me of somebody there, the way he did that. Can't remember. But you know what? He was one of the nicest guys you'd ever meet, and he had such a really, just a real mischievous sense of humour. I really liked him. And the way I really liked him as I got to know him, and then he'd be wrecking my head the way he played the game, and I'd be trying not to say, "Stop wrecking me head, I like you," you know. You've that contradiction going on all the time, I think, you know. I mean, we're only human. I mean, if a guy pisses you off, you're not going to give him he scores an amazing goal, you're going to go, yeah, good goal, you know.
Is there anything about this kind of 2-game format of the final that you think that we are missing now, or do you think it's just way better off the way it is? Is there anything special about a two-game final format?
Well, I think probably what you're seeing here is that, like, we haven't seen the first game. It's a pity we can't really look at the first game and sort of say what could Ciudad Real do differently, you know, to fix this. But obviously they had worked on stuff over that. Now I can't remember. My memory is that there was a 2-week gap between the games. Yeah, about the 2-legged thing. Chris, I'm trying to, because like I said, I haven't done anything for this except delve into the deepest recesses of a. Look at this. Look at that. Oh, you get up better. Now that's common assault right there. And Metlicic goes over to have a chat with Lundstrom and say, "What are you playing at?" I mean, look at this. He's inside, gets him with 2 right in the. And Umbrados turns around and does the whole. What's that all about, ref? You wouldn't get away with that nowadays.
No way.
You sneeze on a guy nowadays, and the referees are pulling out the 2-minute suspension. It's ridiculous. Anyway, is he still playing, Jose? Is he?
No, I think he retired a few years ago. Did he?
No, he's kept going.
Still playing up until definitely last year. Did he become the president? He went for the president of the Spanish thing. He didn't get that. But he became something. I think he was still playing like a couple of divisions down. Fair play. Anyway, Chris, so I'm trying to remember.
So he's still playing for Guadalajara.
There you are.
Champion.
Oh, yeah. There you are.
And he must be 40. Jeez, he was 40 then. No, he wasn't 40 then.
He's 47 now.
47, is he?
And he turned 47 on the day we're recording yesterday, so the 7th of April.
There you go. There you go.
Great pass. Oh,
that's what a great ball.
What a great winger.
Yeah, he was super. He was super. Because Dominic Klein is there, you know, but he's not getting the sniff.
No, he's playing. Yeah, he's in the squad. Yeah,
he's in the squad, but he's not getting the sniff of court time. I think that was one of the things about Gislason. He was old-fashioned old-fashioned in the sense that he had his 8 players, and as long as those guys were fit, they were playing. You know, you know, I don't think you saw too many changes.
You think he had to earn his place a bit more than comparison to some of the more modern coaches? Not that he's not modern, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I remember there was a story about Kiel, maybe when the other guy was there, the fellow that went on to coach. See, I'm terrible with names unless I can see a face, and even then, I'm not great with the names. Jeez, I wonder, did Luke Abelo know then that he was going to be dyeing his hair blonde and shaving it bald, and you know what I mean? Did he know all those? Then he had that kind of Rastafarian look for a while. I think he knew back then that he was going to be Mr. Hairstyle.
He was pulling the lad down.
Oh my God.
that was that. That's him, yeah. And there's Didier Denard. My God, that's Borgelund, isn't it? I'd recognise that hairband anywhere. Back in the day, well, it was more of a piece of string, wasn't it, than a hairband. Back in the day, when he was the only Norwegian, himself and the boy up at Valladolid, what was his name? The left winger. Great guy, great player. They were the only 2 Norwegians anybody knew. And now you look at Norway, it's unbelievable, isn't it, how things change? Borgelund. Is Borgelund the assistant coach up in Norway?
descontento todavía mayor del público. Ciudad Real, por cierto, que ha recuperado ya la paridad numérica.
Isn't he, Chris?
He is. He's part of the coaching team.
De nuevo Gija. Se eleva Gija, lanzamiento que no va a encontrar la portería de José Javier Umbrados. El balón que ya maneja Chema Rodríguez, llega al Palestino, llega a la carrera.
Tell me, Chris, for the benefit of everybody sitting at home.
A la impresión de que algo extraño había pasado. Juega Gija.
How long was between these two games?
1 week.
Only a week.
Only a week.
But one game was maybe on a Saturday and one was on a Sunday, wasn't it?
I think it was 7 days exactly. Yeah.
Saturday. Yeah, okay. So there you go, Campion. I mean, you've got 7 days to think about what the other guy's done, you know, to work it all out and to see where you're going to go. Christian Seitz, not the first time he'd be called for an attacker foul in his career. Or not the last, I should say. Not the... Chema Rodriguez. I told you Chema Rodriguez came on to great effect, didn't I? Look at that. Waltzing through the... Look at that. God, he was fast.
Para precisamente Chema en carrera pueda sorprender a Marcusán, que es un defensor muy sólido, muy duro, pero que en esos unos contra uno con espacio se siente un poquito más inseguro, y ya hemos visto a Chema en esas transiciones sacar provecho en un
So you've got 7 days to think about what the other guy's going to do, maybe come up with something new, you know. Whereas, like, you only have to ask anybody who's lost the Final Four, you know, you're trying to think on the go, and momentum can take you a long way in one game. That's the difference. It's mad to think that they were such great calls. Look at that. Has to be. Good call. That he's called it for the wrong reason, but it's a great call. He's called it inside because he doesn't know why he's calling it. But there's the foul. Oh no, maybe he's right. No,
pushing the back though.
Pushing the back, yeah. Calls it inside. Well, it doesn't matter. He got the right decision in the end. I'll tell you, you've got to hand it to Vid Kaptichnik, don't you? I mean, what a career he's had. And it was so great to see him win that Final Four with Montpellier there a couple of seasons ago. And you think of all the knee injuries he's had and everything else. I mean, fair play to him.
Yeah, he's really come through a huge amount.
Oh, look at Abelo. He was always the same. He's another guy who'd drive you mad. Absolutely brilliant. But he'd drive you absolutely bananas. Imagine Oliver Stephenson standing there going, all right, am I going to get this ball? Nah. I'll just go back and defend for a half an hour. Who's...
I mean, you think Oliver Stephenson playing in right back and then Abelo on right wing.
Is that Rowland Terrios come on there? There, the big guy kind of waltzing around doing nothing in the back court. No? Jeez, I'll tell you, they were dirty so-and-sos, weren't they, Ciudad Real?
Weren't they, yeah.
Look at them, like there's no messing around. It's like that would be a 2-minute suspension in today's game now. That guy just like basically riding Kaptichnik all the way down the right wing. All he was short to do was putting a saddle on him, you know?
Do you think this trajectory of like referees getting a bit harder on players with fouls is going to keep continuing, and then we look back in 10 more years well,
it's gone a bit too far now.
Yeah. And do you hear that from players themselves as well?
I don't get into the ins and outs with them, you know. I mean, I don't get into all that kind of stuff with them, you know. It's but I mean, I think everybody can see now you can hardly touch a guy. Like, good defending now. I mean, Chris, are you gone missing again?
No, I'm listening to you.
You're like the puppet master there, you know, like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain. You pop out some minute and go, "Hey, I'm here still." No, I was just going to say, you know, when you're teaching kids how to defend, you try to teach them to win the ball, to use their body, to, you know, to move their legs, so on and so forth, right? And then as you get older, you suddenly realize, hey, hang on a minute, you can actually grab a guy, and that's a good foul, and then you can do this, and that's a bad foul, and so on and so forth, right? So I get the idea that you want the look at that guy giving the finger. Look at them. Their head kick. I told you, lads, that was the most vitriolic crowd I ever saw. And look at the goal. I remember that as well. They start throwing all these streamers into the goal. Look at them. Look at Rutenka going over to have a chat with them. The peacemaker. Anyway, I do remember that about that crowd kind of going, oh my God, it just got a bit vicious or something, you know? So in one sense, you really want to reward great defending, right? But you can't take the kind of the oppositional factor out of the game. I mean, it's a game that's physical and aggressive, and I would like to see it stay that way. Now, not to the extent of the way it used to be, where you'd be throwing a ball at a goalkeeper's head for no reason, just to get him a bit worried, but or dragging the arm off a guy. You don't want to see that. But the bit of body contact is important, I think. Second line goes in. Look at that. That's Abalo.
That's a classic Abalo goal now.
The crowd, you mentioned. God, he was wide open.
Superioridad va a ser para balonmano Ciudad Real después de un tanto extraordinario de Abaló. Sí, además el equipo estaba muy atascado en ataque en esa media circulación, el tremendo potencial.
So, but this crowd, I think it feeds into what Brian was asking you about the benefits of the home and away thing. You won't get this anymore with just 5,000 people at a Champions League final in the crowd, or I think it said 5,500 and the capacity is smaller than that. And when I was looking at the end of the game from the year before in Kiel, and you were mentioning the vitriol from the crowd, and the crowd in Kiel as well, throwing all their banners and throwing stuff down in the court. I mean, that's something you don't get from most fans these days at the Final Four.
Oh, great save! No, I was listening to you, Chris, but I was just, you know, the coach in me was just seeing how that move was going to play out there. Yeah, you're right. And, you know, look at that. What a save from Interios. And look at the pickup from Rutenka. I'm telling you, he was a great line player. Do you guys remember years later that Xavi Pascual used him to great effect on the line for Barcelona, even though he was always a kind of a left-back player. He could always play line. He was great. Just to go back to that, Chris, you're right. There's maybe, I don't want to say too many neutrals at the Final Four, because there is always a great atmosphere. But having said that, I've also been at matches where there's been a grouping, not at the final, I won't mention where it was, but in a Final Four somewhere, and there was a grouping of fans, and they were just, I mean, they just take it too far, you know. And so I don't miss that, because there's times sometimes where if things are going wrong in certain arenas, which we won't mention, you can start to feel a little bit that this could get scary, you know. And so I don't miss that at the Final Four. I mean, you want your showcase event to be your showcase event. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a place for this. Look at that. Is that Kim Anderson? Or was it Sykes? It was Kim Anderson, wasn't it? Look at that. Look at Abalo again. I mean, Jesus wept. Like he's and Seamus says to him, tranquilo, or something. Probably stop effing doing that. Here's the coach of Nantes now. Look at that. Nice little ball in. Isn't Raoul? He's down there at Nantes. Didn't he take over from our man Thierry Henty?
He took over, yeah. He's the main man.
Great player. I think his brother was more stylish. I think his brother has more panache. I'll use that word again, but he was a great player, Raul Interios. Is that Raul? Sorry, That's Alberto. That's Alberto. Raul's the guy at Barcelona. Yeah, Alberto. Yeah.
Yeah, what do you reckon? Will he keep going now, Raul? Because all these Spaniards who are getting on a bit, it would have been the end of their international career, and for Raul, the end of his career full stop in the summer with the Olympics. But now it's been put back a year. So I was speaking to Rodrigo Corrales today, and he reckons they'll keep going for another year and try and find out a deal with Barcelona to keep him playing.
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, if you look at his performances up at the Euros, was the Euros, wasn't it, this year? Was it?
Yeah.
If you look at his performances up at the Euros, you think to yourself, why is he not playing day in, day out down at Barcelona? But then you look at the way Barcelona play and you realise that... get up there and up! Now, I'm sorry, lads. Look at that. Was that a bit Kaptichnik took that? He took it right-handed. Are there no action replays in this bloody... Oh, here we go. He did. Right-handed, get it into his left. That's a great goal. I'm telling you.
That was beautiful.
That was meraviglioso. Okay, so anyway, you look at it, and I remember at the time thinking to myself, he's able to do that because he's rested. So he's training. He's not playing. He's playing enough, but he's not playing a lot, and so he's rested at 30. Well, he must be 39, is he?
Yeah.
And so he's rested. He goes up and plays, and he has like a fantastic tournament. So he still has a lot to offer, right? But he's decided to hang up his shoes or whatever like that and move into whatever he's going to do. But I think that for all of them, the idea was one more Olympics, right? It's the end of the season, and it's a great way to hang up your boots. But he's probably... Great save again. Terrible penalty. But I think that it's like anything else, Chris. How do you shift the whole season? How do you shift the whole contract thing? Now, maybe Barcelona will talk to him, but I can't see how they can give him a contract for another year when he said he's going to retire and keep him on board. When you look at the amount of game time he's had this season, now they might say to him, "Look, you can stay on board and train with us and keep yourself fit and everything." But I mean, is that going to work for a guy? I don't know. I mean, for his benefit and for like so many guys, you'd love to see them get that one last hurrah if that's the way the coach wants to go. But at the same time, it's a difficult one. It's difficult to see how you could do that. Yeah, that'd be my take.
Do you change clubs? Sorry, do you change clubs just to keep that dream alive of playing in the Olympics? And then are you so sure of your selection? There's a lot of different factors there. I think there's going to be a few players now who are in that kind of position where they're not so sure what they should do. I mean, I think Sterbik then just took that decision. He thought, like, look, I'm going to take control of this. I'm out. Which is sad. He doesn't get his last game.
Yeah, I think that he was already realising that his body. I mean, you could see him. He's still a great goalkeeper. I mean, I don't know whether I picked him as man of the match in one of the last matches of the week that I saw in Vespri. He was absolutely outstanding. But you could see, like, the poor guy could hardly run. The guy could hardly bend over. I don't know how he was getting through games. And if he was, like, when he was getting through games, I'm sure he was paying for it for the next 3 or 4 days. So I'm sure his body was just saying exactly what Chris said. If I take this 4-month break or 3-month break or whatever, I'm not going to get back into shape. I'm not going to get back into that kind of game shape. Sometimes you just know it's over. Now, to be honest with you, I was amazed when I heard that Raul was retiring in the first place, because I still thought he had something to offer. You know, he still looks really fit, very strong. But then you've got that coach, Jordi Ribera. And you're saying to yourself, well, if he can axe Victor Tomàs when Victor Tomàs was the captain of Barcelona and a shoe-in the right wing, and he axes him and ends up winning €2 after axing him, you sort of say to yourself, do you take that chance of playing on for another year and then get your heart broken? Because he could just as easily say, sorry, I'm going with the hot hand, whoever the hot hand might be, some young gun who suddenly appears out of nowhere. That could easily happen. Look at that. Look how many. I don't know how many times I saw him do that. And there's my man Shellman. I'm banking up to score a goal. One of the best defenders I've ever seen, but yeah, never a shooter. Was David Davies on this team? He was, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. Yeah.
Does he not get game time? I'm sure he must get some game time. Maybe he didn't.
Oh, wait, sorry. David De Vries? No, sorry. He wasn't on the team.
But he did play for Atletico.
No. He was part of this squad earlier in the season, but maybe he got injured. That was it.
Not in this game, no.
No, he didn't play in this game. Okay. God. But Roberto Perondo was on this team, wasn't he? On the right wing.
Perondo. I think he was in the team. Let me just. He's. I don't think he played anything in this game, but he did in the first leg. But well, that's all Abelo at the moment.
Here's Abelo with his. Did he land? No.
He didn't land.
No, he didn't. No. That's something that he was very consistent with it over his whole career. That he was always very good at landing and scoring.
Yeah, but watch his technique even then. Now, he's only a young guy there, so we're talking 11 years ago, so he's probably only about 21, 22 maybe then, is he? Because he's still quite young. If I remember correctly, he's only about 33, 34. Right? And anyway, but his technique gets better. He becomes a better player. I mean, he's a great player there, but he becomes better. His technique, his jump is better. Everything's better.
Yeah, I think he just became a lot more controlled over the years as well, because he did have those wild moments, but he could get to control his technique a lot more. Because he was... There you are.
There's the dancing girls. The girls that were on my carriage on the train the way down. I never wanted to leave that train. Can I tell you, while we're having I didn't even remember there were timeouts back then. Holy mother of God, can you believe that? Here's me thinking, timeouts only came in about 3 years ago. I remember where I was standing. I was kind of on that. Their commentary booths were kind of these big glass things, but I was kind of looking out a window watching the game, and I was down away to the right. So as we're watching there, I was down like at the 9 meter line where Kiel are now watching that game. Okay. But I remember going to Ciudad Real, and after the game I went out, had a lonely meal. I've never been. I'm really not a good traveller, and I don't like eating alone, And in those days, I don't know if I had the cop on to bring a book with me. Anyway, I remember where I was eating in the restaurant. There were these little trees outside, it was like a little tree-lined avenue, And there were kids using the trees as goals playing handball. And I remember thinking, oh my God, if that was back in Ireland, it would be, football. And all these kids were playing handball in the street,
Yeah, that's rare to see anywhere, though. I think, isn't it? Really, I mean, that shows you maybe
this is a real handball. Yeah, it was a real handball town.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And I remember as well there was a big mariachi band, I suppose not mariachi band, but there was a big kind of the whole square in the village was taken up with seats, and there was like a band going on, playing on stage, and long before the Final Four had their opening performances, these guys were doing it in Ciudad Real. They had that, the whole city was handball crazy, and it was at a standstill just for this game. But those girls are not from Ciudad Real. I just want to say that because they definitely came down from Madrid. They were a professional dance troupe that they hired for the final.
Do you remember what it was like with the transition then from Ciudad Real to Atletico Madrid? What the inside reasons were? Because as you were saying about the passion for the sport in this town, and also how crazy the crowd were. It's really sad that this kind of club doesn't exist anymore. There is handball in this city, but there is a club as well. They play in the second division in Spain, but obviously nothing like we see in the game we're watching now.
No. I do know what happened actually, because they went to the Final Four the following year, but I think they were already experiencing financial difficulty. I don't know what the name of the president was, but it's a story that's heard so often throughout handball. A guy's like a multi-millionaire, and he experiences cash flow problems, and of course because he's basically propping the team up, you know. So if you've got an extra 3, 4, 5, 6 million or whatever knocking around, you can pretty much fund. Did he give a penalty for that? I mean, give me an absolute break. That still wrecks my head today. Like, what the hell is he supposed to do? I mean, that foul for me happens on the 8-meter line, and he follows him in. The guy's got his arm up, and the referee gives a penalty and calls it inside. I mean, what's he going to do? Is he just going to let go of the guy? It's like, it's a foul, yes, but it's not a penalty foul, right? It's like 9 meters. Am I wrong here?
No, you're right.
I'm right. But I definitely think that was the other thing about it as well. The referees can't. The referees could never be. That's wrong to say, and I don't want to say that about the referees. But it's difficult to be absolutely. There you go. Look, they kept throwing that stuff down during the whole of the game. The referees can never be as maybe unbiased as they want to be, because they're only human too, right? And look at the boards, lads. Remember that? EHFCL.com, the old whatchamacallit, the old logo and the old boards, and you see it now. It's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, they can't. You know, it's not going to be so easy for them to make the tough call at the tough time. You know, and my feeling is that there's about 20 minutes left in the game, and Kiel are 9 up on their cruise, and I think I mean, my own memory is they're going, and then something happens. Can't remember what it is, and the whole atmosphere changes in the hall.
Let's before we actually find out what happens, I want to get Brian's opinion on it. Then, after what you've seen from this opening 30 minutes, Brian, what could or what did Ciudad Real do to turn things around? Because a couple of minutes before half-time, they were down by 8 goals in aggregate. Now they're down to 6. What happened?
How do you mean, what happened?
Or what would you do if you were a coach?
For who?
For Ciudad Real, the team that are losing by 6 goals.
God, I mean, as Tom was saying there, you know, the way they're playing in defence is like they're just really trying to disrupt and just kind of really stick it to them physically. And I'd imagine, I wouldn't say he would have discouraged that in any way. So, but what I would have done, God, I don't know. I'm not the coach here. I think you're asking the wrong man.
How about you, Tom?
What would you have done? Have you an answer in mind here, Chris? I feel like you might have a few ideas, because I don't know.
It sounds like a rhetorical question here, Chris, and you know what the answer is, because you watched this game like 6 times.
I haven't. It is the first time I'm watching it as well, so I'm intrigued. I mean, it seems like a fairly hopeless situation. Kiel, you know, they're not looking amazing, but they look fairly comfortable, regardless of the fact they have a 5-goal lead from the first leg. Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a few things in handball that happen and no one quite knows why. A goalkeeper in the last 10 minutes suddenly stops everything, and the other guy couldn't catch a cold. That always happens. I don't know why it always happens, but it always happens. And then teams start to rush things because they see a lead slip away instead of just playing the way they played before. I don't know if that happens in this game. And then you've got like little... Do you remember I said that I thought Chema Rodriguez had a big part to play in this game? I still think he does. But I also think that something happened in the arena. That's it's just, let's say it's one of those kind of simmers under the surface that I just think Kiel never got a break in the last 20 minutes and everything went the way of Ciudad Real, which in the end comes down to one of the greatest comebacks ever. I mean, we talk about the Kielce comeback against Veszprém, and that's amazing. But we're talking about, I have a feeling it's with 20 minutes to go, they're 9 goals down, and they win the goal. They win the game by 10. Is that right? Would I be right? Is that the way it worked out?
They won by 1 goal in aggregate, yeah.
Yeah, but they're 9 goals down, so they outscore Kiel by 10 in the last 20 minutes, and I don't think they get a sniff of a decision, and I think the crowd really starts to play an absolutely massive role that had the Kiel legs shaking, or I don't want to say it, the referee's shaking. Now, see the way the ref gives a 9-meter throw for almost the identical situation as he gave the penalty at the end of the first half.
That's right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The guy's like Fernandez has passed him, and he gives him a nice little shove. And was that Shellman scoring the most difficult goal?
There's Shellman.
Oh my God! What?
And I think that's the first time they've scored a goal from 9 meters in this whole game.
You're kidding? Are you actually marking this down as you're watching it?
No. So it just showed up on the screen. It showed up in the screen about 20 seconds beforehand. 0 goals from 5 shots from 9 meters for Ciudad Real.
Oh, well done, you, Mr. Feckin' Observant.
Or 0 from 7 or something. But yeah, there you go, Shellman from downtown.
I was looking at this video earlier when I just clicked on it just to load it or whatever, and one of the comments said this is one of the best comebacks ever. I remember one of the German commentators, this is obviously the person who's writing the comments at this, he said with 15 minutes to go the Kiel fans can start celebrating. They have this in the bag. I don't know what you two guys, obviously as the commentators, think. I mean, how do you avoid saying stuff like that when you know that you might eat your words? I'm sure you have a few times in the past.
Excuse me. That's it. The game's over. Vesprem Kielce, and they were 11 goals up or something. Like Ugalde has just scored a fast break goal, and then the world shook and crumbled before my very eyes. And you're sitting there going, "I'm okay." Everybody else said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody else said the exact same thing. Talant Tuchabayev after the game said, "I said the exact same thing." They couldn't explain it. Talant sat there and he basically said, "I didn't even coach them in the last whatever minutes. I had my head in my hands going, what the hell?" Now that's a shocking call. That's a shocking call. It just shows that attacker foul even back then. They couldn't whistle it if they were, I don't know. I have no metaphor to use. You know, I'm not even going to try. But for God's sake, does that not just absolutely wreck your head when you see that kind of horse manure in a game? A guy falls over. What the hell is going to happen if someone touches you, you know? Great goal.
Great goal.
Great player. Great player. Oliver Stephenson's quite quiet in this game, isn't he? He's not really, but Jerome Fernandez is, look at that, top class. Look at that, boom. And the past his old mucker and goal, he knows exactly where his weak parts and where his weak link is. But look at this, Kiel only 1 up, and they go 4 up, and I'm telling you, I have a feeling it's with about 20 minutes to go. It's 15, is that what they're saying in the comments? There's Yika's first goal of the game, I think. Would I be right?
Yeah, you said it at the start, didn't you? They had a quiet second match. But I think the 40-minute mark in handball always seems very important, as you said there. It always seems to be, that's the point where if you're going to have some sort of comeback, you need to be hitting on all cylinders around the 40-minute mark. Because after that, you're under pressure, I think, with time.
Well, I mean, 20 minutes to go, you still have a chance. I mean, a chance, 9 goals down, especially in handball. But I always think 50 minutes is like your normal kind of 3 goals down. At 50 minutes, you've got to be doing it, you know?
That was wild.
Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Jeez, when you think that he became the World Player of the Year next year, and you see a pass like that, get away!
Oh,
what a save! Save of the match.
You know how many saves he got in this game?
I don't know, but I tell you now, I guarantee you he doesn't save a ball for the last 20 minutes of the game, and Gieslassen's afraid. Look at that, 50%.
Look at that.
Gieslassen's afraid to pull him off. Go on out of that, lads.
Look at that.
18 from 36. He's afraid to take him off, right? And put Bruno Fernandes on, who's probably just... There's the little double line move again they played earlier in the game, and there's another goal from it. There you go. So they obviously had that worked out, and that worked beautifully a couple of times in the game. See it?
Yeah.
No, you guys didn't see it. Chris is just looking at things flashing up on the screen. I'm watching this with an eagle eye. Look at Sergei. I think Sergei Rutenka has a big part to play at the rest of this game as well. And Chema.
Gelman again.
Again.
Well, he's wasted as a left wing. Well,
I mean, he's about 2 meters tall.
He is, 2 meters.
There's a nice goal again from Nicola, and there's 3 goals up. maybe we're a bit unfair here. Maybe they went 4 goals up, but only 20 minutes. I have a feeling in my head it was 20 minutes. I don't know. 8 minutes gone the second half. I'm just listening to the Spanish commentators. People say I talk fast. These guys are like bullets going, aren't they? Speaking of which, I'm watching a great Spanish season at the moment. El Casa del Papel or something it's called in Spanish. Money Heist. Really good. Just finished watching Series 4. Huh?
It's good.
Here we go. Here's the 9 goals. No chance. Stervik in goal. Lundstrom gets it. Great player.
There you go. So 21 minutes, 9 goals between the teams.
Yeah, there you go. And that's the game over. So whatever your man was saying, I in my head I said about 20 minutes to go they were cruising. And your man said 15, they had the game in the bag, but 21 minutes, all right. You can forgive me after 11 years.
It may still happen. We'll see what happens over the next minute.
Do you know what I am quite happy about, though, is that just about the majority of that team the following year won their Champions League medal. They had to wait a year for it, you know. But I think that Kara and Karabatic had moved on to Montpellier then, hadn't they? And they got knocked out on that penalty shootout by Tchaikovsky Medvedi. Nobody believed that they were going to be there. And I actually, by pure fluke, found my Tchaikovsky Medvedi player's card.
Oh, he's all open. What was going on there?
What was going on there? Is that Sites? Is that Sites out defending? No, it's Kaptitschik. Kaptitschik and Borgelund. What do they say? Failure to communicate. What we have here is a failure to communicate. I have to say, in fairness, Viran Moros was waiting for the ball, but I wouldn't be betting my house on Viran scoring from the line. Anyway, I think the two boys, and I found my player's card from that 2010 Final Four, but only the Tchaikovsky Medvedi one.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And can I give you one little thing? Guess who I called to help me with the Russian pronunciations?
Alex Kulesh.
Correct.
Really?
Yeah, and they were all wrong. The guy couldn't remember Russian. Because there was me thinking, oh man, I've got them all down flat. I have the whole Russian name thing going on, you know. Gave them all wrong to me.
That's why he's not on tonight.
He did not, did he?
No, he did help me out. Now, in fairness, I mean, I would have been completely lost. But I remember those names nearly had me in tears. You know, all those Russian names. My goodness me.
So was it the season after this that you started one with Tom?
No. We did the Final Four after this season. So now this is. Are you kidding me?
Is that?
Do you know what I mean? This is what I'm talking about now. Are you kidding me? I mean, not only is that an attacker foul for the push in the back of thing, but he actually hits his own player. Oh, here's Bruno, chief executive of Paris Saint-Germain. But do you understand what I'm saying? How on earth can you, as a player, watch this back? I suppose you've got your medal in your pocket and think, jeez, Bruno had the moves, didn't he? Has a look at the ball to see what way it bounced. Off he comes. Come on, lads. That's like the worst. That's the worst decision. That's like the worst decision I've ever seen. He actually his own player tries to block the guy, which would be an attacker foul nowadays, and then hits the guy shooting, and they give a penalty. I mean, holy mother of divine.
You don't know these referees, do you?
No. But to be honest with you, I mean, referees all around the world know that I'm not going to. I mean, I'm great friends with a lot of them, and as I always say, it's not the personality. You're not questioning the personality of the guys or their integrity. You're questioning decisions the same way as you question a player's decision when he's playing the game. You say, what did he go for that shot for? A bit like, why did he go for that shot there? And you say to yourself, Now he's given the free in. Now that's a football against the Ciudad Real guy, right? No.
Should have been. Yeah, that was Vera. That was definitely a football from Vera.
That to me, just on that first view, we're not seeing it. But so you're questioning the action. You're not questioning the people themselves. And if everybody remembers that, then there should be no issue at all. Nice ball.
Great ball.
Yeah,
Off the head.
Should have buried that.
Headshot.
That's why he went bald. That's why he went bald. All those slicers from Rutenka in this game. But look at the defence now. Suddenly from Ciudad Real, that 5-1 is becoming almost like a 3-2-1 in the not quite. Didier Dinar is starting to really step up to play. Watch him; he's always backing up. He's nearly always backing up the player going for the guy with the ball, if you know what I mean. So he starts putting in a serious shift, because I haven't really noticed him up till now in the game.
He's been quiet.
He's starting to put in yeah, he's been quiet. But I think he starts putting in a real shift here now. He started already. So look, he's got hands all over Alan. There's Shalman out front. See the way it's almost like a 3-2-1.
Yeah.
Look at what is going on. I mean, they're up by 7. Here's Chema on his bike and goes all the way through. Told you, Chema had a part to play. Always remember, he was. Look at him. Jesus, he's been at the Easter. He's been at the Easter eggs, and it's. Now look at that. It's a little bit of look at that. How does he get away with that? That's 5-6 steps. All right, he gets a shove, but really, and look at that now. I am going to be the future coach of the French national team.
I mean, he was terrifying back in the day, though, wasn't he? I mean, he still is quite terrifying.
I'll give you a laugh. I was at one of the Final Fours for the EHF Cup, I think down in Nantes, and I'm walking up to the VIP and he's standing there outside the door. I said, "What are you, security?" And he looked at me and said, "What the go?" You know. And I thought he was laughing at me, and I thought, "Geez, that guy could just break me in two. He could just look at me, he could break me in two." I mean, what's the net? There's nothing in that at all. A bit of play acting going on. Everybody's okay. They ended up as teammates. 2015, the big win. Oh, he does get a little swipe across the nose at him there. That'd have been 2 minutes today.
You wouldn't fall over though, would you?
What are you kidding me? Nowadays, these guys, they're fucking brilliant at it. Falling over.
Look at that.
God help us. It's written into contracts at this stage. How many times you can fall over in a game? I don't know. Great player though, isn't he? Great player. Is that Lufgren came on there just to settle things down?
It seems like it, yeah.
I think it was, yeah. They brought it. And did they put Nicola into the right back position there?
I think I saw David Davies on the bench there.
And he's gone for a shot there, Lufgren. And yeah,
basketball style again. All the way through.
I told you. Didn't want to say I told you so, lads, but you know what everyone's going to think now? Everyone's going to think that I watched this freaking game, and I swear to God, on my mother's life, I've never seen this game in 11 years.
When he was good, when he played in his best games, he always seemed like such a glitch in the system when they're playing against him, because he would just go basketball style at the right moment, and it was just so unorthodox compared to what other people were doing in the backcourt.
Yeah, that's the other thing about Kiel, is they were a system type. Defense, maybe. You know, I know that Alfred really loved an L3-2-1 defense, and he was like trying to perfect it over the years. And there was times when it was absolutely sensational. That was his like preferred. He really loved that defense, and maybe when you have a player, that's a nice play by Lufgren, lovely ball,
great ball, yeah.
He's down. Yeah, it's the right decision. They got that one right. That's a really good decision. What was I going to say? And maybe, as you say, when you get a player like Chema, who just does something that you're absolutely not going to expect, maybe it breaks the system. You know?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what
No, I know what you mean. And then for a comeback like this, maybe that's exactly the player they need.
Well, it's just you can't prepare for someone like that.
Yeah, that's it. He's a bit like Peter Nenadic. No one knows what he's going to do. He doesn't know what he's going to do. Team doesn't know what he's going to do. Look at that! Get up out of that! I'll tell you, Viv Kavkicnik, what a fake!
I love that.
Look at that! Jeez, I tell you, some whip on that arm, hadn't he?
I think he was the top scorer with both legs in this game or this final.
I'd have a feeling that himself and Karabatic probably maybe got about 7 or 8 together, and I think he might have got the same in the first leg, maybe more, but he was the penalty taker, so.
Himself and Yika got 9 in the first leg.
Himself and Yika got 9, okay.
He and Karabatic got 7 in this game, yeah. So 16 in 2 games.
Yeah, here we go now. Look at this.
Is that Rutinka scored that? And he's in defence. Never saw him play defence in my life. That's why.
Two hanging out.
That's a shocking bit of defending. And they knew at an early age. They knew at an early age he couldn't defend to save his life. I'll tell you, Kiel are still looking okay. No, like they're 4 goals up now, but they've got a penalty. Score this and but miss this, you see, and momentum starts to change.
Dislocated his finger here. What happened?
Oh, he did not.
Double team.
Yes, he did. Look at his fingers hanging out sideways. Just click it back in.
He'll be back. He'll definitely.
It's no problem. Click it.
Sterbic's not falling for the fake again this time. Oh, delicate! That was nice. The little grenade lob.
So what do you think? I asked Tom that question earlier, Kristen. What have you made any? I wouldn't call them blunders, but kind of committed too early to a comeback in commentary.
I don't know. Like definitely not one as big as the Kielce Vesper. I haven't called the game over before it had been. Last year, when PSG and Kielce were playing the quarterfinal of the Champions League, I figured then that PSG were making this huge comeback, and they had just, I think they had turned the deficit around. So what were they, 9 goals down, and at home they managed to turn it around, and it was like, okay, that's it, they've done it. The problem was for them is that they, almost like in the old football style of scoring too early, as Ireland would do, they cut the deficit too early and then didn't know what to do after they turned it around. So they'd done the hard job, basically won the quarterfinal, and then
oh my god, sorry to interrupt you there. Now that's Vera Mars scored two in a row there. Oh, that's incredible.
He does that a lot nowadays with open goals.
Yeah, look at that, 2 in a row. Robbed it twice.
What were you talking about there, Chris?
I asked Chris the same question about a comeback that he maybe committed to a bit too early.
Oh, nice. No, it was just last year with PSG and Kielce, when Kielce had won that first leg by a country mile, and basically no chance for PSG, except they did manage to turn it around, but did it almost too early, and basically didn't know how to deal with being back in the game, and Kielce just pushed on that bit more. So that seemed like I think I committed to that one being turned around before Kielce woke up one more time. I think it was Alex Dushabayev did all the work there.
I actually listened to your commentary of that game because I wanted to see for the Final Four. I think we were all away, weren't we? We were all doing.
Yeah, all doing.
We were all doing games somewhere that weekend, so I didn't get to see it until it was over, which ruined it for me because I didn't want to know what happened. But it was funny. I think I might have been doing Szeged that weekend as well, and they did the same thing. They overturned far too early against Vardar. They were I think 7 down or 8 down from the first leg, and they went 9 up, and then. But you see, I think it's all as well as like when you have something to lose, you maybe go into your shell.
And we're seeing it here a bit.
Look at that! All of a sudden, Sterbik stands up, and you know, I mean, you're looking at this, right, and you're saying to yourself, okay, Lundstrom's every right. That's not Steps champion, sorry. No, he gets a bounce in before. You're looking at this and you're saying he's every right to go for that, okay? Because there's still 12 minutes left in the game, so there's still plenty of time.
There you are, Sterbik.
But you've got that's a 7-goal turnaround already since minute. Since minute nine, and yeah, isn't it? So you're talking about basically in 10 minutes, they've turned it around 8 goals. That's unbelievable, isn't it?
Unbelievable. And so you're thinking back to your commentary when you started the game, sounding like, what did you say again at the start? Sounding like Quasimodo and Ewok and Helium. So you must have been absolutely losing your mind at this stage of the game
back then.
Yeah, I can't remember. I'll tell you now. It's one of those that I hope it never sees the light of day, because I guarantee you, it's shocking. It has to be, because I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, okay, we all come now. I mean, you guys come from a more steeped handball background than I do, because I started playing handball late. And although I got into it and enjoyed it and all the rest, you guys were raised on it basically from the time you were a kid. All right, maybe not at this level, but you know what I mean. You're raised on handball and so on and so forth. And then, of course, because you got to know myself and David and Karsten, you were involved in a higher level again than you know what I mean, with a kind of a knowledge of the game. So when Chris went into commentating, he may not have understood media-wise what you need to do, but he understood handball-wise. Do you understand?
Yeah.
What the point I'm trying to make? I understood media-wise what you had to do, but handball-wise, we're talking about, you know, Mount Everest here. Yeah. Imagine your first game. Normally you say to someone, your first game is like a 3rd division team. No one's ever going to watch it. You make your mistakes and all the rest. No. Mine is a phone call 3 weeks before this game is going to happen. Or not this game, the original game. Do you want to do it? And at that stage, if someone said it to me now, I'd say no. But at that stage, it was kind of like, oh yeah, I'll give that a go. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see a Champions League final. That's what I was thinking, you know. And yeah, I'll give it a go. But to be perfectly honest, if I was working for like a big network, I doubt if I'd ever have been hired again. And then they didn't call me for a year. No, that's not true. That summer, I was invited to commentate the Stefan Löfgren farewell game in Kiel, and they all came out in American football uniforms, and I didn't know who anybody was. I remember thinking, oh Jesus, yeah, I swear to God. Well, no, that's true.
This final wasn't the first time you commentated on handball, though, was it?
No, I think you guys found something stupid I'd done on like some Irish channel with Ireland against Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I wasn't the commentator there. There was.
I remember that would be on repeat on this Irish. I can't remember what it's called anymore. This Irish sports channel, and it would just be that one game, Ireland against Scotland, and you were the co-commentator for it.
Setanta Sports, was it?
Setanta. Yeah, it could have been.
Now, but just so you don't fake everyone out there, Chris, I was like now this will give you a laugh, I was the expert to a guy who didn't know anything about handball, and he was commentating, and the whole time I was like scratching my head going, oh my God, will you ever shut up? You haven't a clue what you're talking about, you know? But anyway, and
commentating on your two brothers as well.
I know, commentating on my two brothers and trying not to say, what are you doing, you effing idiot? Yeah. I think there might have been a bit of that. It was pretty poor. But anyway, so they called me for this farewell game when everyone dressed up in the American football uniforms at one stage in the game. And I remember thinking, oh man, I don't know who anybody is. This is just an absolute disaster. So I tried to cover it. And then they didn't call me for a year until the Final Four. And then they called me for the Final Four. And after that I said, look lads, you're wasting my time, your time and everybody else's time. And that's when they said, well, what would you do? And I said, well, people have to know who the teams are. You can't just parachute 4 teams out of nowhere in what you're calling the Final Four and expect countries to show it, They're going, who the hell are these guys? Where do they come from? I said, so you have to kind of get to know them. And they said, how would you do it? And I said, I would do a game every week. That was a round. And I said, we started by doing, like, you go to all the far-flung outposts of the empire so that people start getting used to names, So that was the idea with Match of the Week, that you got used to the names so that when someone said Ciudad Real, you didn't just suddenly go, who the hell are they? They were gone, I think, but Atletico Madrid, we went there a few times, and you got to learn who Kiel is, and you got to learn who Chambéry is, and you got to learn who, it doesn't matter, all these guys are. And I said, and you pick 2 teams that are quite similar level, so that when you're commentating the game is not like a 25-goal hammering, I said, because otherwise no one's going to watch it. And so that's how, for the first 3 or 4 years, I mean, I still can't believe that it became the brand that it has become. And, like, a lot of that credit has to go to the way the EHF started thinking about, like, sending mobile reporters and branding the game and everything else. And there was a time when some of the bigger clubs, I won't mention who they are, didn't want to be Match of the Week. It was another mouth to feed or another room to find. But the smaller clubs always loved it, always, because they wanted that kind of to be mentioned. And so it's amazing how far it's come, really, when you think about it. God, I'll tell you, there's some thuggery in this game, isn't there?
Yeah, from both sides, though. So just playing the whistle.
Kiel are losing their cool a little bit, aren't they? They're still winning, though. They're still up by 2, right? Oh no, 3 goals up. Yeah.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
Up by 3, yeah.
However, because they won the first leg 39-34, a 5-goal win, away goals are on Ciudad Real's side, so it's basically 2 goals, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, they can only let them, win by 2.
Yeah.
Ciudad Real, they know at this stage with, 7.5 minutes left, that if they win by 5, they win the Champions League.
Great play. That is fantastic play from Karabatic. Did you see what he did there? He turned 3 guys inside out and still managed to break through and score as he's leaning away, if you know what I mean, with his right arm. Now, how are they not... See, that's typical of Spanish TV, isn't it? The Kiel guy scores a goal, they don't show the action replay, and it's brilliant. But the Ciudad Real guys do anything, and it's repeated, I don't know how many times. That's the other thing about the 2-legged thing that I don't like, is that, you definitely have the home TV channel, obviously, or the host broadcaster, so they're the ones calling the shots on what gets played and what doesn't get played and all. He called inside. Oh, very good. Oh, maybe I was wrong. Well, no. I was going to say I was wrong about the referees, but did they call an attacker foul? I didn't even realise attacker fouls were called in. What's going on here? Look at that. 2 minutes for what? The invisible man. Did he attack the invisible man there? Some guy fell about 6 meters away from him. What did he blow, or what did he do? Can we see that, please? Oh, here we go. Oh, give it up! Are you serious now? Do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean about my idea that... there's Alan Lund. Jerry Springer, we used to call him. I swear to God, he used to laugh so hard. He'd walk into... before you guys were playing for the senior Irish national team, he'd walk in and everyone would go, Jerry! He used to love it. And he'd be going, what are they calling me? We showed him like a YouTube clip of Jerry Springer. He thought that was hilarious because he looked like him. He does look like Jerry Springer, and he was always kind of... Now, here we have Alan, who says he never went to bed with Alicia, but she's saying this is his child. Jerry Springer. Right. Oh, how did he not score that? How did he not get a penalty? You see what I mean? There's just a few decisions where you're kind of going, come on, ref, that could have been a penalty. It would be a penalty today. You know? Oh, Jesus, lads, nostalgia. You can't beat it, can you?
Does it make you sad at all?
Only because I can't walk anymore, and my arms hurt and my knees hurt, and I have 4 kids now, and I never have any money, and in that sense,
Looking back to simpler times.
yeah, I wasn't married. I was a free, yeah.
Nobody wants to give Chelman the ball here. Chelman's got an acre of space in the wing. He doesn't want to. Nobody wants to give it to him. I don't think he wants it either. In the bottom, in the left-hand side of your screen, there is a left winger out there.
Well, you got it there.
There he is.
I don't know how he scored that as well. Good goal.
Oh,
I might have been a bit harsh on Jonas.
No.
The game of his life today.
Well, that's
Or
the
not
first
today.
left wing goal he's after getting. I think Chris is right. They just weren't getting the ball out to him. He was out there hailing a taxi. He was on his way home, you know. But you can definitely see there that Yika, although he had a great first game, I can't really remember it, but he had a great first game. You can see his immaturity showing in this game, can't you? It's just maybe he's just running a puff.
So they've taken Karabatic here 1-against-1 of the man marking him.
And look at Dinar. That's great defending. Look at that. Now, that's Klein. Wild shot. That's always been Dominic's favourite shot. Top corner. Look at that.
Chelman again.
There you go.
And I can hear the fucking Spanish commentators there. What a pass by Viran Moras. Look at that. Jeez, I've seen times where the ball's been so hot in his hand, he just kind of scoops it to the next guy. He's got a bit of skill. I mean, Kim Anderson's as quiet as a mouse in this game, isn't he?
He is actually.
Balls. Yeah. That's unfortunate. So they're still up.
Still up, but by 0 goals. One more goal for.
Oh, that's a great goal. Who got that?
Yeah.
That was Livgren, was it?
Oh, yeah.
No, it was, yeah. Great goal.
Good.
Great goal, the old man. Kept going. Look at that. That's great. You do feel something now. Don't get me wrong. Ciudad Real, when you look at it now and you say to yourself, Kiel really folded, you know, in this game, so they deserve it. But you feel sorry for them watching it, don't you? You kind of think, they were so good for what? They were so good for so long in the game, and then suddenly there's Rutenka stepping up with the big goals again on the line.
Yeah, it's always the thing watching.
Look at the defence, though. They're just cutting off all the angles. Kim Anderson had no one to pass the ball to there. He kind of goes across. He's waiting for like a switch or something. Oh, that's a 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it has to be.
And rightly so. Huh?
Hey.
Has to be.
And he got the ball. He got the ball.
He got the ball after he got both his feet. It's like me chasing my kids up the stairs. I always trip them up like that, you know, so they don't beat me. He didn't get 2 minutes for that. Can't believe that.
Just the free throw. Okay.
That's incredible.
Oh, maybe he did get a ball. No, you've got to give a free there, don't you?
Yeah, but you get the ball and then also take him to the ground as well. I don't know. Clip his knees.
Jesus, lads, look at the way they're able to get those little balls where they end up with like the gap or 3-on-2 or 4-on-3. Look at that. See, that was the difference, I think, between the two teams now looking back on this day. The individual class of certain players to be able to do it.
Yeah. Chelman, Chema and Abelo in parts as well, huh? Probably those three.
Well, definitely Chema and Abelo just at the key moments. And then you've got Fernandez, who's just like, doesn't look like he's even sweating, you know?
2 minutes left. Next goal wins.
Do you know who Fernandez reminds me of? Renato Vugranets. They were the only two guys I ever saw playing 60 minutes of handball, and they looked like, oh my God, I remember that. I remember Dominic Klein missing that. I remember that. And he wanted a foul. If you look at it again, it looks like his arm was taken if the Spanish TV show it again. And I remember talking to him about it later, maybe the following year, and he was adamant that his arm was taken. Nothing. No. Do you know who it was? It was his agent said it to me. That was a foul. It should have been a penalty. And you see there now, it wasn't. Gosh. God, little things come back to you.
Look at the way they even get in the way of the camera, the production of it. Like your man's head in the way of half the
That's
goal.
unbelievable. Get out of the way.
Down in front. Yeah, there we go. So Kiel are gone now. They've lost it.
Oh, the next goal wins.
Look at your man. Yeah, don't be telling me what to do with your camera head in you. Who do you think you're talking to? I'm a season ticket holder.
That's hilarious. And there's the goal. He missed it.
They've just won the ball as well. No.
That was Stephenson.
Oh my God. Was that 30 minutes? Bloody hell, that game went by fast. Jesus. I may have been a bit harsh in the ref section. Your man's still going and giving out lacquery to the cameraman. Look at him.
Little did he know. Look at him.
Look at him. 2 hands in the air. The cameraman sleeps with the fishes. That's what he says. That's it. Game over.
I can't believe these are the final scenes of the final before the Final Four is brought in, where it's just a man's arm in the way.
How times have changed.
But that was the one thing. That's the one area that they've really got to overcome for a lot of arenas is the position of cameras. Not to get too technical, you know. But I'll tell you one thing. I do remember at the end of this game, the Kiel bench was just like heads down, and they walked off the court at the end. And I remember Löfgren trying to kind of go, "Come on, guys." Like that was his last game. He must have been devastated, but he was still kind of. I mean, they're delighted. What a comeback!
There's the dancing girls.
That's talented Jabayev, isn't it?
Look, he's loving it.
Look, he's loving it.
I'm sure he wouldn't appreciate being called the dancing girls.
No, there was and the other part of the shot. Look at that! What a great shot.
Oh, there was 5 seconds after. Why did they bother? Come on. There's your man.
Yes.
His whole night's been ruined by the cameraman. Tell him to sit down. We're a sore man with a head of hair, eh? Zoot.
So there you have it, Chris. So you asked me the question, what was the difference then? So what was the difference now that we've seen it? I'll ask your question to yourself.
I'm not sure if it was necessarily an improved performance from Ciudad Real or just Kiel kind of losing a grip of things, because there were small improvements there. We saw the defense, like Didier Dinard running the defense there. There's a bit of an improvement there. Chema in the transition attack, Sterbik with some nice saves as well. But I mean, for still the vast majority of that second half, it still looked like Kiel weren't going to blow it. So I really don't know what happened in the end.
I think you will definitely hear a change in the kind of the decibel level in the hall. I remember thinking, oh my God, like this is half the size of there's Roberto Parando. God, he's gone on to great things, hasn't he?
You mentioned that the decibel level and the atmosphere in the crowd, but do you think it was sparked by something in particular? Did you see anything in there tactically that turned it around, or was it them riding on a wave?
You know what? I couldn't tell you now, but it was almost like there was a penalty decision in my head. I mean, don't take this as being anything. Maybe it was the penalty that Vid took, where he put what's his name on the ground and then took the shot, or maybe it was another penalty given. But it just seemed to me that the crowd just in absolute, and there was just vitriol, aim coming down in rivers from the crowd. I remember that. That's the one thing I did. Poisonous is the wrong, because everybody gets a bit animated and stuff. But you even see it with that guy there at the end, the old guy with the head in front of the camera. You know, he's going bananas with the cameraman for telling him to sit down, and you just see that, like, the passion or whatever it is that you want to call it. And I think that maybe looking back, Alfred would maybe have changed a few people. Maybe he didn't have the bench to do it, but he might have changed a few more things, given a bit more time to a few more, to just see. Like, who do you want in the last 10 minutes? You want your top team on, right? You want your top guys running the game, playing it, being smart and everything else like that. And I think in the end, he was like, maybe Lundstrom couldn't run anymore and he had Klein on, and you see Klein has that one shot from the left wing, doesn't score, then that shot there from the right hand side, doesn't score, and maybe he needed 10 minutes after 40 minutes, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To give and looking back, I'm sure these guys, they learned from all these mistakes. Obviously Alfred did, because he won it the next year and beat Talent in the semi-final. So I mean, look, who knows? Unless you're there that day and you sense something, I don't think anybody looking in from the outside, you can detect one moment that you sort of say, this happened. Because I think it becomes a torrent of things, doesn't it? Kiel started taking far too many quick shots. And you look at it and you say to yourself, well, he was entitled to take that shot there. But if they played it again, they might wait for another 2 passes, But they were probably thinking, everything's going in at the moment. We're ahead. We're winning. And then it slowly but surely starts crumbling around them. Weird.
Yeah,
I think.
Sport, And it's not the first time we've seen that,
Yeah, I think Sterbik, those few saves there was within 5 minutes he made 3 or 4 saves. Like there were some massive moments. And then weirdly enough, I think those 2 goals by Vera Morris, which came it's the same mistake twice, and I was just like, there's something psychologically about that. I think that you can really upset kind of the confidence going into just the latter part of the second half. And I think maybe they're the 2 moments I think I put down to kind of Kiel losing their belief a little bit late in the second half.
Yeah, or people like Shellman suddenly scoring from the left wing. You're going, oh Christ, we're not going to win this, because if Viran Morris is scoring 2 goals and this guy's suddenly banging them in from the left wing where he couldn't, The other thing I would say to you as well is, when you look at the 2 goalkeepers, if you look at Sterbik, yes, he had some great saves, but a lot of the shots were bad shots. Like they had bad angles and he's covering, and you say to yourself, Dinar really was the master of that kind of moving that defence around. Which he brought to that French national team, as we all know. You could see it a mile away, and they learned all that with Duchabayev. But then you look at the other end and you say to yourself, Omeyer makes that absolutely amazing save, and I think he made some amazing saves that maybe when he stopped saving it, the Kiel defence wasn't as good as it could have been. Do you understand what I mean? Sometimes a goalkeeper can make the defence look good because he's saving everything. You sometimes see it with Landin this season. If he's having a great game, Kiel defence looks like it's top class, right? Suddenly he's not saving them, and then the defence doesn't look so. And I think that the Kiel defence didn't look that great in the last 20 minutes of the game. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't just, it was Omeyer was saving those one-on-ones earlier, and suddenly he wasn't getting near anything. And then you start to, like, as a defence, you start to go, oh Jesus, if he's not saving us now, what can we do? There's a bit of that as well, so it's like, it's all of those things, like a little layer cake, isn't it? That just suddenly, and then the ball moves in funny ways for you. There's some games where you're just everything's in the zone, it's just happening, and then there's other times in the game where it just doesn't seem to bounce right for you. Those passes that suddenly were going to the line aren't going anywhere. I mean, I don't think Marcus Alm got a sniff at the ball there in the second half. There wasn't a ball into the line. So obviously Talent had said, right, that's one of the things we're going to stop, is make sure these guys in the backcourt have to make the decision. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's one of the things.
They stood out on top of was it Karabatic at left back as well. So not only were they forcing the backcourt to make the decision, they were forcing 2 players to do it all.
Right. Yeah. No, but what I'm saying to you is, if you look at Kim Anderson and Yiche in those games, they're both really good players, but maybe they don't have the maturity yet to be able to make the right decision at the right time. So their first instinct maybe is not to go for the shot, is to maybe keep playing it, in that kind of system way that they play. And then suddenly that's locked off for them, and so they have to go for a shot where maybe they're not used to doing it, or they're not comfortable doing it. They haven't got that experience, and So you got to hand it to Talon Tujabayev, because it wasn't his attack that did it. That was reasonably good. It was definitely the defence in that game, in those last 20 minutes, that really made all the difference.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a nice look back. Any, you said you had a few memories beforehand. How does it compare to what you've actually seen over the last hour and a half?
Well, the first thing I want to do is apologise to those two referees. No, I mean, listen, there's bad decisions all over the place, but you would expect that in the thing. It's difficult because we just watched the pictures, and I didn't get the sense of the atmosphere in the crowd. Obviously, we don't want those Spanish commentators like roaring over what we're talking about. So it's difficult. No, but you understand what I mean. It's difficult to get a sense, because you do get a sense of the rhythm of a game from the way the crowd is reacting and so on and so forth, right? And how they're reacting to decisions and so on and so forth. But I will say to you that it was one of the most intimidating atmospheres that I think I've ever witnessed in handball, anywhere I've ever been. Really intimidating. And I was commentating the game, and I remember thinking, Christ, I'm delighted I'm not standing down there in the court. And nothing after watching that changes my mind that it was intimidating. I don't mean that in a negative way, but really that if you were a player in that court as one of the opposition, you really knew that you were in the Lions' den. Plus, I think you'd said they've won 2 of the previous 3. And the second thing is that no matter how professional you are, no matter what kind of an athlete you are, if the team is not functioning, you're in trouble. And then so one team ended up functioning and the other didn't. But looking back, that's what I remember, the atmosphere. And it's a pity we don't go back there again, because it was an amazing arena. It really was. It was real open and kind of square, and you really, everywhere you were sitting, I remember the banks were quite high, the way they were built, so you got a great view of the game. So it's a tremendous pity that they don't exist anymore. But then you can't live in the past. And one of the things we did talk about just before you're finished is all of those players, and how so many of them went on to so many great things in so many other clubs is just an unbelievable testament to people seeing the talent that was there in those young guys. If you think about it, that they were trusted like that at that age, and they've gone on, most of them, to have these tremendous careers.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think we'll leave it there then. So lads, what do you think?
So who's gonna listen to that anyway? That's what I say.
Tom, thank you very much for this, taking us through your first final ever in the Champions League. And well, who would have thought it would go? How many? 11 since then? That was 10 of the final 4. So this, 10 more after this one.
This year would have been 11. But let's wait and see. Let's wait and see that if everything works out and we manage to beat this dreadful illness. And by the way, I just want to say, like, we're having a laugh here and all the rest, and I think I've really enjoyed this, because for the last so many weeks, your eye keeps getting drawn to these figures of how many people are dying from this disease, and thankfully none of my family have been affected, I should say, and I hope the same is for both of you. But I mean, I try and write to as many people as I can, that on whatever Twitter or on this, hoping that their families are safe, because it's just, when you think about it, it's just horrible. It's a horrible, and sport really takes a big back step, doesn't it? And we got to take a big back step from it. It goes into the background. So it was actually nice to just not even revisit that, although it was nice to revisit it, but to talk about something other than coronavirus for like an hour and a half or 2 hours. I really enjoyed that. It was just a little bit of a break from reality, because the reality is so horrific.
Yeah, of course, it takes a step back, but it's there to remind us that there is a world outside, and there was, and there will be again. Sport one day will be a part of our world.
What a philosopher! What a beautiful sentiment. That's powerful, Chris. It's good to talk to you guys. I have to say, I do miss the interaction. You know, I mean, I think we all do. You know, but I really miss just saying hello and you know, hanging out. And geez, we have a great job, haven't we? In fairness, I'm going to start crying in a minute. You better stop this. Better stop it quick. You know, I have to go back into all my kids. You know, all my kids, and looking up to see what the Irish figures were today. It's horrific. All right, I don't want to talk about it anymore because it's bad enough.
All right, Tom. Thanks a million.
Most welcome, boys. Thank you very much for asking me. Appreciate it.